Dave, Alvin, and Jimmie Dale Gilmore, welcome back to eTown.
Great to be back.
Good to see
Thank
you
you,
guys.
Nick.
Fun to play your songs.
Really good to be back.
I think our listeners know about your stories. I mentioned the Flatlanders and the Blasters, and you guys have made great solo records for years and years. So I'm interested in just checking in with you guys and getting some wisdom, because you've been at this a while.
Well, you come to the right place.
I mean, for example, Jimmie Dale, I'm just trying to imagine you growing up in Lubbock and thinking about the music you heard as a kid, and whether it was Buddy Holly or Hank Williams or Roy Orbison or whatever it was on the radio. You figured out a way to figure out if a song meant something to you, like if it connected with you. Have you figured out a little bit about what that is yet?
Well, I ponder it all the time, but I haven't actually figured it out yet.
Yeah.
It's a mystery. It's really a mystery. Music is...
Some songs just sneak inside you and make a difference
Yeah.
somehow, yeah. And when you're writing, is it the same thing? It's a mystery. You're just inviting the muse to come into your world, and if it happens, and you can finish the song, and you can tell if it's any good when you're done.
Well, I never have been very prolific, because the way it works for me is that I don't invite it. It kind of attacks me, and what happens if I get an idea that keeps coming back? At some point, I'll go, I think it's pretty good, and then I'll kind of work on it.
Yeah.
But it's because I think I never did learn the trick of just deciding I'm going to go sit down and write a song now,
Yeah.
and I kind of regret that.
Well, they're probably now they probably got schools for songwriting, and I'm serious. They got schools for everything else.
No, it's just AI now.
Yeah, it's okay. But the trick about songwriting is that, I've never met anyone that does it the same. Because songwriting, it's not like you're building a house. If you're building a house, you got to start with the foundation. Songwriting, you can start with the roof.
You can start with the title, or you can start
Yeah,
with
but that's
a
the
line.
roof, it just doesn't matter. You can build it any way you want.
Yeah.
And I tend to be like Jimmie Dale in that I've never been a guy to do a lot of demos, and if I get a song idea, I don't sit and put it on a tape right away, because when I was about 14 years old, when my brother Phil and I used to follow around blues singers like Big Joe Turner, one day I wrote a song for Big Joe Turner, and I was walking home from school, and I had to walk about a mile from school to my house, and in that mile I wrote this song, and then a few days later I saw Big Joe Turner, and I said, "Hey, Big Joe, I wrote a song for you." And Big Joe says, "Okay, sing it to me." And I was like, and I could not remember it. It went right out of my skull. And Big Joe Turner gave me my first lesson in songwriting. He just goes, "Well, if you can't remember it, it ain't no good to begin with." And I've lived by that,
Wow.
It's like Jimmie said, if you're walking around and the song keeps coming back to you, it's like, okay, that might be a good
There's
one.
something there, yeah.
Yeah.
Did you ever at a stage in your life be the disciplined guys like, you know what, I'm off, I've got a week at home, I'm going to just decide that, like, I'm going to have my coffee and I'm going to smoke a cigarette and drink a Red Bull like you used to do all the time. And at 10 o'clock, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to see what comes to my mind.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I've written like that. Sometimes with a gun in my head. Yeah. But especially back in Blaster days, it was like we had to make a record. So I had become the songwriter in the band.
Yeah.
Because no one else wanted to write songs. And anyway, I've gone through things where I've gone away for 3 months, and there's papers everywhere. I've done that. Yeah. But I'm also not like other songwriters. There's songwriters I know that get up every day and write a song, and at the end of the month, they'll have 31 crappy songs.
Right.
And maybe one okay one. And, and I've got a couple songs that I kind of like, I wish I would have written that one. But overall, I've done all right.
Hey, I just heard a pretty good story from Brennan Lee, the other artist who's on the show this week, saying that she and her buddy went over to hang out with Guy Clark, as they often did, and one time when they went there. He was often just super excited about whatever it was that he was excited about. And if he was excited about, you were going to feel that excitement. And he was excited about a song of yours. And it was just, it must be cool to think about some sort of absolutely respected, legendary songwriter tapping into your creative path and connecting with it on that way.
Well, you know, Guy Clark and I, it's sort of like Jimmie Dale. You know, the few times, you know, because I got to know Guy pretty well, but when we actually discussed songwriting, we were discussing a lot of the same guys. We were discussing songwriters like Rudy Toombs and Otis Blackwell and people like that were R&B songwriters. And Guy Clark was like, oh, those are the best songwriters in the world. You know, I was like, you're right.
That's cool.
You know, so we kind of shared that, you know, R&B outlook on things.
Yeah. Jimmie Dale, did anybody ever tell you you look like that guy Smokey in The Big Lebowski?
Yep. Nick asked me that earlier, and I told him that the funny part is that there have been people that ask that question seriously. They thought, well, you really look like this guy that's in this movie that I like. That's an anomaly of the world that I have never figured out. That movie stays alive through generations, and people, I'm all the time meeting people who go, I've watched that movie 50 times. You have?
How sad. Yeah.
I like it. I like the movie, but not 50 times worth.
Yeah.
Well, you know, when we first started touring together, I have to make I've never seen The Big Lebowski. I've never seen E.T. I've never seen Close Encounters of the Third. I had never saw Jaws.
Anything by Steven Spielberg, you just boycott.
No, well, I saw Schindler's List and all that, but I just didn't get around to it.
Yeah.
So we're playing these gigs, the first few gigs, and then it was like there'd be these lines of people waiting at the end of the show, and so I'd walk out and like, okay, who wants an autograph? And we don't want yours. And they all had Big Lebowski posters, Big Lebowski coffee mugs, Big Lebowski bowling balls or bowling pins. And I was like, I gotta see this movie.
Yeah.
I had no idea he was in it, you know.
Dave, I forgot to ask you about the LA fires. I know that so many people around you have been affected. 12,000 buildings destroyed. And did you fare okay?
Yeah, where I live, the hills where I live were fine, but my sister had to evacuate. She lived literally a block away from the National Monument, San Gabriel Mountains National Monument. And her house survived, thankfully, miraculously. But sadly, her entire neighborhood did not.
Wow.
And so you have to imagine, you know, walk outside here, and it's just all gone. And then there'll be one house. And her 120-year-old olive tree survived, her native plants all survived, the cactus survived, the succulents.
No, they didn't survive. They didn't survive. They unsurvived.
No, they survived.
They survived.
Oh, the succulents did?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I misunderstood when you
Yeah.
told me
No,
that
no.
story earlier. I thought you were
no,
saying that she lost them all.
No, they're all there.
And you made up a new word, too.
But
Succulents.
everything
Along the way, along that detour.
define unsurvived.
Yeah. We have some sad news about someone who's unsurvived today.
I thought you were just getting cosmic on us.
No,
I was like, wow.
Jimmy can get
Yeah,
cosmic.
what
There's
does
no
unsurvived
Yeah.
mean? Boing, mind blown.
Well, I'm glad you fared okay. There's just a lot
Thanks.
to unpack over there. And just for full disclosure, everybody, I should let you know that I was in a band with Jimmie Dale Gilmore almost 50 years ago, I think 49 years ago, something like that. And that we've been friends. The three of us have known each other a long time and hung out. And I got to play on your first record, the Downey to Lubbock LP.
Yes, sir.
Came out to LA and did that. So I have an unfair advantage among radio interview personality types because I know these guys pretty well.
You know, by the way, Janet, my wife Janet, the song she loved the most on that record was July, You're a Woman. And for a long time, Dave wouldn't play it because you weren't there. We didn't have the mandolin part.
Yeah.
It was very weird. And Janet finally browbeat him into it.
Yeah, well, Nick did this amazing spontaneous mandolin piece. We were just kind of playing around in the studio, and then it was like, well, hell, let's go into the song. And we went into the song. So there's like this 30 seconds of just brilliant, borderline jazz mandolin playing. That, yeah, I can't do the song without Nick.
Oh, man. Well,
We're not going to do it tonight either, but...
And I wouldn't remember it anyway, yeah. I do. You guys remind me a little bit of Steve Martin and Martin Short. You know, just two like late in your careers, you guys are good friends, and you bring some vitality to your out on the road performing and your time together, and it's really
late in our career.
Late-ish.
I beg your pardon.
Late-ish.
Late in my career.
Well, let me just put it this way: these two will never actually be in the same decade together. They are just a little bit more than 10 years apart in age.
Yeah, but you know what? Back in the late 60s, we were in the same place together. Because Jimmie used to hang out at this blues and bluegrass club in LA called the Ash Grove.
Oh, yeah.
And I used to hang out there, and I only came up to his knee at that time. But that's our first connection. So we may not be in the same decade, but we're musically in the same spot.
Yeah.
We didn't know that about each other until we started.
Yeah.
We did for about a year. We toured just the duet with us before we made a record.
It's interesting because in some ways it's an unlikely combination just based on your backgrounds. And in other ways, it absolutely makes perfect sense because like those succulents in your sister's backyard, they can survive a tough time, but they come from the same soil and the same roots, and they've flourished in this same environment in a way that's really beautiful to see you guys hanging out the way you do.
He's a poet. He's a goddamn poet. Thank you.
All right. Well, listen, we're happy that you're still doing it and making records. We got more songs to play. Should we play some more music?
Yeah.
It's fun. Let's do some more.
All right.
Welcome back, Dave Alvin and Jimmie Dale Gilmore.